Now, look, it has been an incredibly busy week, and I know that you've all had an incredibly busy week in Parliament, but I do actually want to go to a council issue to kick things off this morning, because after weeks of anger from Cyclone Tracy survivors, the Lord Mayor yesterday confirmed on the show that the VIP unveiling of the new kinetic sculpture has been cancelled. The event was due to take place this afternoon. Now, Convat Scarless claimed the event had been cancelled due to the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese being unable to attend. However, hundreds of protesters were expected to attend, well, in protest against the sculpture, which they say doesn't respect the survivors or those whose lives were lost in the natural disaster. A group of survivors is calling on the council to return the money to the federal and Northern Territory governments, some even calling for the mayor to resign. Now, you know, what I think is so important to acknowledge here is the impact that Cyclone Tracy has had on so many Territorians, not only Cyclone Tracy survivors, not only those who've lost family members, but, you know, to be honest, right around Australia, this is one of the biggest natural disasters that we have ever experienced.
Indeed, Katie. Look, I don't have much of an opinion of what's gone on in Darwin, but what I saw in Parliament just yesterday morning, we had a ministerial statement, a debate about Cyclone Tracy, and the level of emotion around that in the room was incredible. And it struck me, Katie, that Darwin is moving into this period of commemorating the 50th anniversary of Cyclone Tracy. Do not underestimate the level of emotion of people throughout Darwin and Australia. People will express their emotions in all sorts of different ways. Yep. Mainly in sadness, expressing it in sadness, but also in other ways like anger. So I think my advice would be to people is to be kind, be patient, and be mindful of the traumatic impact this event had on so many people, not just within Darwin, but beyond.
Yeah.
And I would have to 100% say Robyn is spot on there, because yesterday I did live in Darwin before Cyclone Tracy, but left. I read out a speech from a girlfriend's mother, and it was really tough. And, the member for Nelson lived through it, and it was heart-wrenching listening to that. And I think the council has... They said they'd consulted, and you know what they do up here. I'm the member for Katherine, not in Darwin, but I've certainly listened to a lot of talk around it, and I think they totally missed the mark and absolutely underestimated the emotion that it would bring to people. It is a big event, just like the Katherine flood was a huge event in Katherine, and I think it is going to be a very emotional, all those celebrations that they're going to have, especially the one on Christmas Day. I think, it will be very emotional.
I 100% agree. And Selena, you're a Northern Territory girl. You've been here your whole life, I believe. Were your parents here when the cyclone
Katie,
struck?
my parents were living in Batchelor at the time, so a lot of the runway at the Batchelor airport was used to bring in supplies and to evacuate people in and out of the Northern Territory, because the Darwin, obviously, airport was unusable at the time. So I've heard different stories, and obviously long-term residents, we know that there's been a lot of trauma. I think very wise words that Robyn shared with us this morning, and I think the intention of the council has been honourable, but unfortunately, we know that there's a lot of emotion attached to any type of trauma in the Northern Territory, and even 50 years on, we are seeing that raw trauma and emotion come out, and I think there needs to be a commemoration of such an important and historic and traumatic event in the Northern Territory. But I think that the underestimation of how much it means to people to have that commemoration in the Territory has been missed, unfortunately. But I do believe that the intention was honourable and very well-meaning. But unfortunately, it has caused a lot of disunity in the community, because people are are not happy about the way things were done with that goodwill intention.
Yeah, and you know, like there are times, as all three of you know, in a political career where you have to go, okay, well maybe I've made a misstep here, and you know maybe there does need to be an acknowledgement of that misstep, and I just wonder why the council's sort of hesitant to do that at this point. I can only assume that it is because such a phenomenal amount of money has obviously been invested into this kinetic sculpture. And look, I know that there'll be some people who agree with the kinetic sculpture, but we are being inundated with messages, phone calls every day, people saying that they do not feel that it reflects the event that Cyclone Tracy was, nor do they feel that it truly represents, you know, the resilience that Darwin has shown in rebuilding. And we know artwork will demonstrate, you know, or certainly bring out different feelings for everybody, but I do feel that the council's made a misstep here, and sometimes the best thing that you can do is acknowledge a misstep.
I think you are correct there, Katie. I've listened to the commentary around it from the council. I've listened to the mayor speaking, and I am surprised that there has not been some apology of, okay, we got this wrong, or admission of getting it wrong, because I get emails almost on a daily basis about people's discontent with what's going on. The most significant sculpture for me, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is the twisted metal at Sanderson Middle.
I think it's either Casuarina or Sanderson.
Casuarina Senior College. I know I've seen it, but that to me tells an incredible story of the ferocity and just the damage that was left behind, let alone all the photos that you see out there. That is something I think is more worthy of something in along those lines.
Well, look, we might take a really quick break, because when we come back there is so much to cover off from throughout the week.